Okay, good evening. We'd like to call to order the July 31st, 2018 meeting of the Nassau County Interim Finance Authority Directors Meeting. And the first item I would like to put forth for consideration is the approval of the minutes of May 8th, 2018.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to skip out of the agenda for a second and let our Executive Director, Evan Cohen, to discuss his mid-year review and analysis of the multi-year financial plan update. Evan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The update of the multi-year financial plan presents the county's current assessment of its financial condition for 2018 and its fiscal outlook for 2019 through 21. Before I get into our analysis, let me start by telling you the county's projections, which are more optimistic than ours, in part because they already reflect additional revenues and savings the administration expects to realize from initiatives it had proposed back in March, but which have not yet been approved by the legislature. So the county projects a surplus of $9.2 million in 2018 and deficits of approximately $41 million in 19, $84 million in 2020, and $81 million in 2021. The projected deficits are prior to the implementation of their out-year gap closing plan. In contrast, we're projecting baseline risks of approximately $81 million in 2018, $91 million in 2019, $146 million in 2020, and $164 million in 2021. The differences between the county's out-year projections and ours range from $50 to $83 million. Those risks, if not mitigated, would translate into gap deficits of a similar magnitude if they were left unaddressed. The $81 million in projected risk for 2018 are detailed in our staff report, so I won't discuss each one now. However, the two largest projected negative variances in 2018 are $43.8 million in payments related to the Restivo judgment, none of which was appropriated in the adopted budget, and $40 million for projected overspending on tax certiorari refunds, which we have always found to be underfunded in the operating budget. It's important to note that the administration submitted a plan in March, which I mentioned earlier, that acknowledged the budget hole created by the Restivo judgment and proposed several gap closing initiatives to generate the resources to cover that expenditure in the operating budget. However, many of these initiatives are considered risks in our current analysis because they require legislative action. These risks will be removed upon successful execution of those initiatives. The actual tax certiorari variance will depend on how much of the liability is booked to 2018 and which portion is paid with resources that the county currently holds in its disputed assessment fund. Although the size of the projected out-year risks are formidable, they are substantially improved from our analysis of the adopted plan by an average of $44 million per year. The improvement stems primarily from the removal of our previous risks attributed to underfunded tax certiorari refunds in the out years. We took down those risks, $40 million a year. We removed those risks for one important reason, and that's the recent passage of the revised disputed assessment fund legislation, which is also referred to by its acronym DAF. The new DAF provides a more flexible framework than the original DAF for raising monies to fund tax certiorari refunds for commercial properties. This has the effect of creating a dedicated funding stream that the county can use to pay any commercial property tax refund regardless of the year in which the grievance was filed. And that revised DAF becomes effective in 2019. The county estimates that this could generate $100 million per year going forward, and that the county will also have available approximately $200 million from the original DAF that was brought in 2017 and 2018. I want to emphasize that our risk projections do not account for the costs associated with negotiating new labor contracts and several potentially large legal judgments that have been reported in the county's CAFR. That's the consolidated, that's the audited financial statements. Overall, our analysis concludes that the projected risks confronting the county will likely impede its chances for ending 2018 in complete GAAP balance without the implementation of additional recurring revenue generating and/or expenditure reducing initiatives. Our message has been consistent that strong management and legislative cooperation is needed for the county to have any chance of meeting that objective of GAAP balance. However, there seems to be little support currently for any initiatives that raise revenue through higher fees and fines or reduce expenditures through diminished or eliminated services. Staff is closely monitoring the budget and will bring to the board's attention any new or widening variances that develop. Obviously, the passage of time makes more difficult the implementation of gap closing corrective actions. Further, the county executive's proposed 2019 budget and 4-year financial plan is going to be released in just a little over 1 month. We believe that the county should be looking right now to implement corrective actions now to get a head start on closing the projected gap for 2019. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Evan. Are there any questions? I would just like to echo Evan's analysis and comments and just state that we're not saying in the report that we believe the county's going to end with a deficit of $80 million. We're saying that the risks total $80 million, and some of those risks will go away when certain actions are implemented, and some may not happen. So it would be some combination thereof. But we're not. But that's what we mean when we say there are risks to the plan. That these are things that require some other action to take place. So I just want to make sure that people understand what we're saying when we discuss this in light of the report. Yes.
I'd just like to add that careful reading of the risks in the report, there's basically 2 risks that account for the entire risk in that budget, which is the CERT risk of, I think, $50 million, and the Restivo risk, which is the $47 million. The rest of them are small and offsetting. So those 2 items are the big items that the county has to deal with this year. And both of those, as we've discussed, are going to be very difficult for them to handle.
Mr. Chairman. So I just want to compliment the staff on putting together a fine report. I think they've done a good job of summarizing the county's risks as well as the current financial status at the mid-year mark. What it tells us is that the budget dynamics are unchanged. The county still has only 2 means by which the budget can be balanced. You can either raise revenues or you can cut expenses, or more likely both. And borrowing is no means by which to balance a budget under generally accepted accounting principles, nor one that we can accept. What is important is not that the board receive this report and accept it, which I think we will and should, but that the county read it, take it to heart, and take responsive actions so that you can get to the point where the budget is indeed balanced and that you have the fiscal self-determination that comes with the offices to which you've been elected.
Comments?
Yeah. As a follow-up to Chris's comments, I concur with him. And I had one question I'd like, just for the record, and you and I had discussed this. When looking at the tax cert backlog, I separate that challenging issue and from the growing backlog. They're 2 separate issues. So, put another way, before we start bailing water out of the ship, we have to make sure the hole is plugged. So my question to you, and I value your opinion on this matter, but what I have seen as lacking for some time is a plan to stop the backlog from growing. And this disputed assessment fund, my question to you is, in your professional opinion, at what time, at what length of time would need to elapse for us to have confidence, and you'd have confidence, that that growing backlog will no longer occur? Because it's for me personally, before I will authorize additional borrowing to do away with the existing backlog, I need to know that it's just not going to get worse and it's not going to continue to grow. So my question to you is, how much time would need to elapse for you to see that those backlogs are not going to continue to grow and that DAF is effectively working towards stopping the growth?
Well, let me start by saying that based on our discussions with the county and their explanation of how the revised DAF fund will work, I feel pretty confident that that will provide a recurring revenue stream to pay off tax cert refunds at the pace that they are coming in. So I think it's, as designed, it will prevent the backlog from growing. To answer your question, how will we know if the theory turns into reality? That will probably take a few years because we will need to wait for the audited financial statements to be completed in order to get the county controller's assessment of what the backlog is. It was currently estimated to be $569 million at the end of 2017. That includes $200 million of backlog attributed to a LIPA litigation, which most likely will never have to be paid, that $200 million. So there's $369 million backlog. How do I know that? I'm taking the number from the county controller's report from the CAFR. So I think we're going to have to wait until probably 2020 at a minimum in order to get the results from 19, which is the first year that the revised DAF is effective.
Well, yeah, and I think, Evan, maybe what we'll do is we'll ask the county to provide to us their plan, their analysis about why they're confident in the fact that the DAF will address the problems prospectively, and why and that the backlog is static and needs to be dealt with on a retroactive basis. So maybe we can get something from them to give Paul some of the comfort he's looking for, and some guarantees and commitments as to what they're going to do or not do going forward.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, next item on the agenda is an order to the Nassau County Attorney to compile certain labor-related documents. Jeremy, would you like to comment on this?
So this is a matter which has been sort of kicking around for many years, and that is the issue of the county not having consolidated labor agreements, which you can look to find out the terms of collective bargaining. We had, for many years, asked the county for these documents. This became a particularly big issue after the 2014 contracts were signed. We said we must have consolidated agreements. Moving the clock forward, we never got consolidated agreements, so finally in November of 2016, you ordered the county to provide us with consolidated labor agreements, and you told the county at that time that we would not be willing to look at any new labor agreements until you had single consolidated versions of the existing agreements. Moving the clock forward now, we still don't have those consolidated agreements. I'm not blaming necessarily the county or the unions, but the bottom line is that a new round of negotiations is about to begin or has begun, and we still don't have consolidated agreements. So this order is to remind the county that you want these consolidated agreements and that you will not review any labor contracts or any new terms of labor agreements until you first receive consolidated labor agreements from all of the unions.
I have a question. When was the last time we issued this order? Was it to the prior county executive?
It was in November of 2016, then we
So-
extended it, but it was the last county executive, so this is kind of a,
This is just a reminder that
just in case the new county
this
executive
means
hasn't
you
gotten the
too.
message.
Okay, got it.
Although, as you know, I can be fairly persistent.
Nobody questions that.
So, in essence, you're just repeating your order, and telling the county that
And
that existing.
Didn't the
order-
original request really go back to either this room or the adjacent room? And I'm not sure whether it was still May 2nd at the time. It might have been May 3rd, 2014, by the time we voted, when the board extended the contracts to December 31st, 2017. Wasn't the request even made
Oh, it has been made
at that
since,
time?
it has been made
Right?
since before the contracts
years
were
and change.
executed in the 2014, during the contract negotiations. After, it's been
Okay.
repeated numerous times.
Basically, we told Noah back in, with the Ark.
I mean, the point here, though, is to make sure
Maybe
that
left-
there is
left
no
left
question that everyone has this message and it's the united vision of the board
Okay.
that they need these agreements, which, by the way, I think everyone agrees, the county agrees, and many people from the union agree. It's in everyone's best interest to know what you're negotiating.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the consideration of revenue anticipation notes by Nassau County. Jeremy, would you like to?
Every year, the county issues some short-term notes, and this is a very common feature of public finance, that money doesn't all flow in exactly when you need it, so you issue temporary notes to cover shortfalls. The county this year wants to issue revenue anticipation notes in September for approximately $300 million, and the notes would mature in March of 2019. As I said, as I've said in the past, this isn't the sign of a necessarily strong county budget, but it's done by many counties and other municipalities all around the country.
From an historical pattern, in the area of potentially slightly good news, this is a little bit less and a little bit later.
Yeah,
Which is-
since they've
Right.
done this at different times and different
Right.
amounts, we've all come to a consensus that it's, yes, a little less and a little later. And as a matter of fact, the county debt manager's here if you want to ask him that, but I think he would tell you the same thing.
Yes.
Steve Conklin is.
You're not objecting to that simple statement of fact? Okay, good.
So I'll move the resolution.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Okay, so the last item that I have to present to you is consideration of general obligation bonds by the county. The county has asked us for permission to bond for $23 million, including the cost of issuance. And this is to reimburse themselves for money that they paid out for the Restivo judgment, or at least approximately half of the money they paid out for the Restivo judgment. If the borrowing is permitted by you, since they've already paid the money out of their budget, they will use the money that they're reimbursing themselves with to pay down the cert backlog. So that's the item before you, a request for $23 million to reimburse themselves for money advanced on Restivo.
Did you just say you borrow from Peter to pay Paul?
No,
I
gonna
think he
say that.
described
I was
that.
gonna say that in my comments.
That's what I
You
thought I
took my
heard.
line away.
Describe that condition.
But in any event, okay, so, anything else to clarify? there?
Jeremy, just one thing about what you just said. They took the money from their budget to pay it. That money was never in the budget.
The money was never in the budget. What happened was they actually had to take the money out because the court wanted it taken out and paid. So yes, you're right. It was never part of the original budget. So that's created a shortfall in their budget because they had to take out that money.
But
And the
just as a
actual-
point of clarification for the benefit of the current administration, this was a judgment that was well-known and,
2 years
and was due in the prior administration. They segregated the funds according to the court order in the prior administration, 2017, without making a budget appropriation.
Right.
And then in the passage of the budget in 2017, that was given to the new administration, they still failed to provide for an appropriation
You mean
to it. So this is,
2018?
so this was a,
For
this was a problem
Right.
that the new administration inherited.
It did.
And in their March 15th submission to us, we gave them lots of kudos and commendations for finally accounting for it and making a budget to provide for the payment of that, although some of the items in which they were going to use to accomplish that are still need to be executed, which is why Evan discussed some of the risks. But needless to say, they finally did provide a plan that we thought was commendable. So I think that's where we are today, as far as we know.
If I may, just so from an historical perspective, I can appreciate that the current administration inherited this from the prior administration, but I don't think anybody who ran for county executive ran for that office not knowing that, especially those who sat as county legislators beforehand. A little historical perspective, not that we always have to do everything NIFA always did, and from meeting to meeting and year to year the members are different, but this board some time ago voted at the time, and we stated it for the last time, to fund cert judgments and claims with borrowing. And so when the facts are the same, when the budget imperatives, which is to either raise revenue or cut expenses or both, are the same, and the question's the same, my view is that the answer needs to be the same, and the answer is no.
We'll do a roll call, so
You should make,
Chris.
somebody needs to make the motion.
I so
Yeah.
moved. Just may I ask to be clear, since the language of the motion changed, on the meaning of a yes and the meaning of no.
What, are we considering a motion to approve, so that?
Well, you're considering a motion to approve the bonding, so a no vote would mean you do not approve the bonding, and as you know, any item that comes before you must be passed by an affirmative vote of at
Right.
least 4 members.
So somebody
Okay,
needs to
so-
move.
so
I'll
is there-
make the
is there a
I'll make the
motion?
motion.
Howard moves.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so let's do a roll call vote. Paul Levin?
Excuse me, before you do that, I'd like to have some discussion on the motion.
Okay.
Okay.
I suspect, though I'm not certain, that I'll probably be the only one to vote yes on this motion, and I'd like to explain my vote fully before I do. I think a lot of the blame for this becoming an issue rests with the county. Nassau County, when they received approval to bond the $23 million, should have bonded the $23 million immediately. Whether it was bravado or naivete, they thought that they could possibly get through the year without bonding it. Obviously, they were wrong, and this is something that never should have been delayed until almost August of 2018. As it was pointed out previously, the prior administration knew this money was going to be paid in 2018. In order to meet the court order and segregate the money, it's not like they found $47 million that nobody needed and put it into a pot. They scraped together $47 million out of funds that were probably borrowed in different form and pulled it out of every budget pot that they possibly could. In effect, as one of my colleagues pointed out, they borrowed from Peter to pay Paul. Okay, now Peter wants the money back. So the question is, how does the county come up with that money? Now, I know, I think Chris was the one who made the point, it's a valid point, that this board voted never to allow judgments to be funded by borrowing again. And I think that's a very principled stand. Judgments and cert claims don't do anything to improve the status of the county. All they do is provide more paper to be filed in the court clerk's office. However, this is an exceptional situation, given that the amount in question, $47 million, is larger than any municipality in New York, I believe, could handle, other than New York State, New York City, and maybe some of the large cities upstate. And I doubt very much that they can handle it as well. Any other municipality with a $47 million budget would be forced to borrow it. Nassau County, being the only municipality on Long Island whose financial condition is so bad that they have a control board, which is instituted a control period, is now being told you can't borrow. It would seem to be upside down logic given the condition of the county. Now, I know that it's been pointed out that this money is going for certiorari claims. And the administration has said this money is going for certiorari claims. However, money is fungible. When the money was taken out and segregated for the court order, nobody said where it came from. It's just the county put aside $47 million. They did not provide in the budget for 2018 to pay that $47 million, and it certainly wasn't provided in the budget for 2017 to pay that $47 million. Where did it come from? It didn't come out of the air. So the fact that the county paid the judgment already left them short someplace else. As has been pointed out by Evan, he believes that there's a risk in the budget for 2018 on cert claims of $50 million, I believe.
40.
40?
40.
$40 million. And I think that's a realistic estimate. So the fact that they're reimbursing themselves into the budget and using that to pay $23 million in additional cert claims doesn't disturb me in the least. It was budgeted money that was never provided for. It needs to be borrowed and then used for budgeted purposes. And the last point that I want to make is the issue about county is going to have to borrow for current certs, or may have to borrow for current certs, so let them come and put in a full request for the whole thing, and not, quote, shift money back and forth between one purpose or another. That's also a legitimate concern on the part of the board. However, if the administration chose to do that, there's no guarantee that the county ledge would approve it. And then where would we be? We would have turned down the borrowing for $23 million, which in my mind was a legitimate request to reimburse the county for paying out the Restivo judgment, and then have no means to pay the current claims for our certs, which if they are $70 to $80 million, there's no possibility of paying it out of the current operating budget. At least this would reduce those cert claims by $23 million and reducing the risk from the county to approximately $17 million. So for all of those reasons, it's my intention to vote yes on this proposal.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Howard?
Yes.
Weissman?
Yes.
John Bjorn?
No.
Lester Petracca?
No.
Chris Wright?
No.
Paul Leventhal?
No?
Paul Nunziato?
No.
And I would just want to say before my vote, I hear everything that Howard's saying, and I hear what everyone else is saying, and I think the issue here really is we want to get a full picture of what the county's borrowing needs are going to be for the larger problem, which is the cert backlog, and how that's going to be addressed going forward, and to do it in this manner now, without us getting a full picture of how we're going to handle the bigger problem, is probably premature. And, you know, just to state facts, the judgment has been paid, and the county has provided a plan as to how they could handle it within this budget, and we accept that. So the need for this at this time does not seem to be glaring in my view. So I do vote no. And so therefore, the
Resolution
motion
fails.
does not carry, fails.
Move to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, one
I'm sorry.
yeah, one item I'd like to ask Evan to mention to the.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We already had the kid.
No, I just wanted to publicly say that after 11 years of serving NIFA as a deputy director, Maria Kwiatkowski will be leaving us shortly to begin her next phase of life in Florida. This is Maria's last meeting, as she is retiring in early September. So I want to thank Maria for her time at NIFA. She brought her own perspective to the job after working at Nassau County for several years, and before that in similar budgeting capacities in I would call other lands all around the country. So on behalf of the office, I can say Maria's absence will not go unnoticed, and I wish her the best of luck in her future endeavors.
Here, here. There's more cake.
I just want to know who's going to answer all my questions.
Extra cake inside for anyone that wants it.
Yeah.
Just want to find out who's going to answer all my questions on the contracts now. Got to find
Yeah.
somebody. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion